The hound of the Baskerville family, Vikir van Baskerville, had once been the most loyal servant to his family and father, yet that loyalty was repaid with betrayal. Falsely accused of conspiring with the demon clan, Vikir had been sentenced to the guillotine. Standing before the executioner's blade, a single thought burned in his mind. If I were ever to live again, if I ever caught that rabbit, my prey, I would never live as a hound again. Then, darkness. Somewhere, a baby cried. A faint, weak voice echoed in the distance, and wide, curious eyes blinked open. Where is this? The infant wondered. His tiny body felt heavy, his surroundings loud and overwhelming. No way! Is this hell? But no. A voice answered the unspoken question. The grand estate of the Baskerville family. Inside a room where newborns were gathered together, the air was thick with the cries of infants and the cold, detached gaze of the patriarch. Hugo Le Baskerville, head of the clan, stood surveying the room with disdain. These insignificant brats, Hugo muttered, displeased. There aren't any special children here. I think there's only trash gathered this time. As he moved between the cradles, he paused, peering down at one baby who lay unusually quiet among the others. The trash here is quieter, Hugo remarked with a sneer. Move the children to the cradle of swords. Yes, patriarch, a servant obediently replied. But within the quiet infant's mind, fury blazed. That face, Hugo Le Baskerville. Recognition struck like lightning. The main culprit behind my framing and execution. Hugo. This is his younger appearance. I'm certain of it now. A flood of realization followed. I, Vikir van Baskerville, have regressed. I've returned to the time when I was a baby. His mind, once bound to the life of a hound, now raced with clarity. In my past life, born from an illegitimate bloodline, I received harsh training in a miserable environment. A hound's mission was simple. Assassination, intelligence gathering, ambush, threats, all manner of dirty work, to ensure the Baskerville family remained the strongest of the 7 great families. Vikir's loyalty had always stemmed from one simple desire, to be acknowledged by the family, by Hugo. 10 years after the gates to the demonic realm opened, the war against demons ended with humanity's victory, and the reward for the hound who gave his life for his family was a swift execution. The reason? I knew too much. Vikir clenched his tiny fists in his cradle. I will never live that life again. I want my revenge now, but with a newborn's body, there's nothing I can do. Still, being moved to the cradle of swords is the best opportunity to grow strong. He recalled the infamous trial that awaited Baskerville children. They were thrown into a labyrinth of swords, forced to navigate its deadly maze and reach the legendary Styx River. That river, said to transform the bodies of children into iron, was a blessing, but it could only affect a limited number of those who made it in time. In my past life, I was cast aside by my siblings and denied its power, but this time, it will be different. I'll monopolize the Styx River's blessing as long as I can. The cold shock of water tore Vikir from his thoughts. Thrown unceremoniously into the river, he could feel the sharp sting of his wounds as the water seeped deep into his bones. To think that having a great start would make such a big difference. I need to endure. No matter how painful it is, I need to withstand it. Servants gathered at the river's edge, alarmed by how long the tiny child remained submerged. Young master, you need to come out. You're going to die if you stay underwater any longer. Get him out! We need to get him out! Hugo, standing by with a mocking grin, barked a laugh. Ha 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 ha! John Barrymore, he addressed the loyal head butler. How long has it been since the boy went in? John Barrymore, ever precise, responded. Around 7 minutes have passed, patriarch. 7 minutes, huh? Hugo mused. He might die. Patriarch? Son, Hugo called out, a cruel smirk on his lips. You may come out now. That voice. Vikir heard it clearly through the water. You think I'd come up so easily, Hugo? He gritted his teeth, already growing in his infant mouth, and thought, I'll absorb every bit of this river's power, until the very last second. Pain racked his tiny body as water filled his lungs. He coughed and sputtered, but his will held firm. Endure, endure, endure. At last, Hugo himself reached in and pulled the infant from the river, holding him upside down by the ankles. "Well, look at this kid," Hugo scoffed, examining the small soaked form. Being in the Styx River wasn't enough for him. He even drank it. The patriarch's eyes widened in mild surprise. "He already has teeth. What's this child's name?" Hugo demanded. John Barrymore stepped forward. "It's young Master Vikir van Baskerville." A chuckle rumbled in Hugo's chest. "Vikir, huh? Seems a very greedy son has been born." As he was set aside, Vikir's sharp, burning gaze never left Hugo. "Enjoy yourself while you can, Hugo," he thought coldly. "Right now, I'll use this time to silently sharpen my canines, and when the moment comes for me to rip my master's throat out, the Baskerville family will disappear into history. By my hands. The hands of Vikir van Baskerville. Hugo le Baskerville's bastard son, Vikir van Baskerville. At 8 years old in his previous life, he had already been talented enough to be called a genius. Yet, within the Baskerville family, even geniuses were considered ordinary. At 20, he took on missions of assassination, espionage, and conquest. By 29, Vikir felt the crushing weight of his limits in swordsmanship, falling short compared to those of direct bloodline. At 30, the gate to the demonic realm opened, marking the beginning of the demon clan's invasion. For 5 long years through an era of destruction, Vikir slaughtered monsters without rest, surviving horrors that claimed the lives of many. At 39, when the long war finally ended in humanity's favor, what awaited him at 40 wasn't reward, but betrayal, false accusations, defamation, and the cold kiss of the guillotine's blade. Now, with his infant eyes fluttering open once again, Vikir van Baskerville looked around. This place, a nursery, he thought, which means I've successfully absorbed the Styx River. I have a better starting point in life than before. He exhaled slowly. Phew. Suddenly, a servant's startled voice cut through the calm. "Geez, why does Madam want that kind of thing in young Master Vikir's bed?" "Madam?" Vikir's sharp mind caught the word instantly. "No one would give me a bastard a present." Then came a faint rustling, and the box at his bedside cracked open. "That's bloody mambas." His eyes sharpened. Rare vipers, known for their swift, lethal venom. Did she send these to assassinate me? It wasn't even shocking. Within the Baskervilles, only a handful of women were referred to as Madam. Whichever one it was, she was likely attempting to cut down the competition early. But these vipers could easily slaughter all the other infants in the nursery as well. Without hesitation, Vikir's tiny hands shot out. He gripped the writhing snakes by their necks, choking the life from them one by one, then smashed them against the cradle's frame. The nursery's soft cries continued as if unaware of the life-or-death struggle that had just unfolded. As expected of the Baskervilles, Vikir thought coldly, "I'll bring this entire family down with my own 2 hands." The next morning, Baskerville Estate was thrown into chaos. Servants and family members alike were left speechless at the sight. Young Master Vikir van Baskerville sleeping peacefully in his cradle, surrounded by the limp, dead bodies of venomous vipers. All the nannies on duty that night were swiftly arrested, tortured, and executed, yet the true reason for the viper's appearance remained unsolved. Only the young hound knew the truth, 8 years later. "Today, young masters," the teacher announced, "we will learn about the levels of swordsmanship." The boys sat attentively, some more eagerly than others. "If you cannot yet imbue your sword with mana," the instructor began, "you are considered a sword beginner. The level at which you can infuse the blade with a little mana is called sword expert. When your blade emits mana in a liquid aura-like form, that is sword graduator. And lastly, the level where your aura is solid and its form can be freely manipulated, that's sword master. The strongest of the Baskervilles, Sir Hugo, stands at that level." At those words, Vikir's gaze darkened. So Hugo was already a swordmaster at this point in time. He clenched his fist beneath the table. "I need to regain the power I had before regression and before the coming-of-age ceremony. The teacher noticed him lost in thought again and sighed internally. Still, with the physique he earned surviving in the Styx River for 7 minutes, he's a different kind of boy. You only need to teach him one thing for him to learn 100. He's much more talented than the others. The patriarch will be very pleased to know of his progress. But Vikir's mind wasn't on his teacher's approval. How many years will it take to kill Hugo? A group of boys approached, shoving Vikir roughly. "Hey, garbage van!" one of them jeered. Vikir met their gaze coolly. "I've been hearing some weird rumors about you," sneered another boy. "Apparently, you dived in the Styx River for 7 minutes and strangled 2 vipers to death when you were just a baby." Vikir's eyes narrowed. "I know these guys all too well." He recognized them instantly. They're the ones who stabbed me in the back when I was running after the false accusations. Hugo Le Baskerville's personal lackeys, the so-called Trident. "Stop lying. Stop. Stop," one of them snapped. "We don't like you." Vikir considered his options. They're going to be a real pain in the ass in just 10 years. It might be wise to put them in their place now. One of them, Highborough, pointed a small dagger at Vikir. "I heard if you stay in the Styx River too long, your body turns to steel, so you won't die even if I stab you. Right? Right? Right?" As Lowborough grinned and signaled to cover Vikir's mouth, he chuckled. "I guess it's true what they say. Children really are cruel." Lowborough smirked. 7 minutes in the Styx River? I'll eat my hand if he even endures for 3. Vikir glanced at them lazily. "Let's play along for a bit." "There's no way a legend like that's true," scoffed Middleborough. A minute later. "He's good," Highborough admitted, a bead of sweat on his temple. 3 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Another 10. "This is no fun. Let him go," Highborough finally muttered, frustration evident in his voice. Lowborough's hand flinched in pain as he pulled away. "What are you doing?" he yelped. Vikir's voice was low and sharp. "Didn't you say you'd eat your hand?" Lowborough's face paled. I'm not scared of you," Highborough shouted, though his voice trembled. "I'm not," Middleborough insisted. "I am," Lowborough admitted weakly, cradling his hand. "I got my finger bitten off." Highborough tried to regain control. "Calm down, Burrow. Let's go ask the priest to put it back." But Vikir's icy voice halted them. "Who said you could go?" Highborough spun around. "You bastard! Did you forget that we're a year older than you?" Middleborough barked, backing away. Vikir calmly adjusted his trousers, having barely a scratch. His smile was cold. "You're the ones forgetting," Vikir said softly. "This is Baskerville. Here, power and talent overcome age." He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "Let's keep playing, until the end." "The rumors were true," Highborough coughed, blood oozing from his mouth as he collapsed to the ground. Vikir van Baskerville had landed a clean, heavy punch squarely into his gut. The room, once filled with jeering voices, was now silent, save for the ragged breathing of the so-called Trident of Baskerville. Despite outnumbering him, the trio was terrified. The air was thick with fear. Vikir's presence pressed on them like a storm. "Don't be scared," Vikir said, his voice low but oddly gentle. "You'll get better in no time, once you're treated." He bent down, picking up a blood-stained dagger from the floor. "But I won't let you leave this room just yet," he continued, his voice turning cold. "You'll have to live with the discomfort of your own bodies for a while. However," he smirked darkly, "I'll be generous." The boys looked up at him, hope flickering faintly in their bloodshot eyes. "I'll let one of you leave right now." "Really? Which one of us?" Middleborough croaked. Vikir's smile widened, cruel and unhurried. "You'll have to decide that for yourselves, but I won't wait long. Shouldn't at least one of you live?" He watched as they coughed up blood, glancing nervously at one another, the so-called Trident of Baskerville beginning to split apart right before his eyes. Meanwhile, in the towering halls of the Baskerville estate, Patriarch John Barrymore, the ever-stoic butler, addressed Hugo Le Baskerville. "There's been another bloody situation with the Morgue clan in the Ruby Mines. They're insisting the mine is their rightful territory." Hugo chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "The opportunity to deal with that will come soon enough. The Morgue clan will seek us out first. Is there anything else to report? There is, Barrymore replied. It concerns the interim evaluation at the juvenile fortress. Young Master Vikir placed highest on the written exam. Is that so? Hugo murmured, his brow raising in mild interest. When's the practical exam? In 5 days, my lord, Barrymore confirmed. The Guardian Knights have already vacated the premises in preparation. By now, the fortress should be completely empty. Good, Hugo nodded. But, Barrymore hesitated, there's one more matter regarding the juvenile fortress. A serious fight broke out among the young masters. A fight? Hugo's eyes gleamed, a mixture of amusement and curiosity. How many died? No casualties, sir, Barrymore reported. However, Master Highborough's teeth were completely shattered. Master Middleborough's jaw was smashed in, and Master Lowborough's left index finger was amputated. They've since recovered physically with treatment, but the psychological wounds seem considerable. Hugo frowned. They wouldn't have fought amongst themselves. Those three are always glued together. Barrymore inclined his head. There was friction with another young master. The one responsible is young Master Vikir. The room fell silent for a beat. The 8-year-old? The one with the highest written scores? Hugo asked, a glint of something dangerous flickering in his eyes. Yes, my lord. A slow grin spread across Hugo's face. You've grown since I last saw you, Vikir. Hello, Patriarch, Vikir greeted as he stepped into the chamber, his face emotionless. Patriarch? I suppose I am, Hugo chuckled. I heard you disabled the 9-year-old triplets in your senior class. If you're referring to those brothers, Vikir replied calmly, I believe they've received proper medical treatment by now. I'm not talking about their bodies, Hugo said darkly. I'm talking about their hearts. Since that day, they've been eating separately. They don't speak to one another. Their combination technique, once decent, is completely ruined now. Don't you think that was wrong? Wrong? Vikir asked, genuinely puzzled. What did I do that was wrong? You've turned your brothers into a total mess. But I'm stronger, Vikir stated. How can the stronger person be wrong? Hugo let out a deep, satisfied laugh. Your brothers came ahead of you earlier. They said they would graciously forgive you, and yet, you feel no guilt? Vikir tilted his head, amused. They forgave me? A memory surfaced. A time from his past life. A young woman, the youngest daughter of a family ruined by the Baskervilles, had visited Hugo. She had become a nun, and after many years told Hugo, I forgive you. She even offered a mass for his sins. Hugo's reply after the service had been clear, cold, and absolute. I believe forgiveness is just an excuse made by the weak who cannot seek revenge because they lack the strength. Hugo now gazed at Vikir, approval gleaming in his eyes. Only strength reigns supreme. Weakness is a sin. You understand the family motto well. Then he called, Barrymore. Yes, my lord. Allow the boy to take whatever snack he wants from the food storage, just enough for him to carry on his own. Vikir gave a small, respectful bow. Then, may I have chocolate? Thank you, Patriarch. My son, Hugo said with a grin. Do well in the interim evaluation. Don't you dare lose to the direct descendants. Yes, my lord, Vikir replied, though his eyes burned with quiet, murderous rage. Barrymore led Vikir to the pantry. This is the infamous chocolate favored by the Morgue clan's gourmands, he explained. It's of the highest quality, obtained with considerable difficulty. Vikir wrinkled his nose. I don't want anything processed. Pardon? I need cocoa beans, ones with a rich aroma. Barrymore blinked. The beans? He fetched a small sack. These are the bloody beans, known for their dense, intoxicating scent. With a single bean, you can produce 100 liters of chocolate. To eat them raw, he must really love chocolate, Barrymore thought. As he handed the sack over, the old butler mused privately. Within the limitations the patriarch placed, this boy found a way to secure as much chocolate as he wants. What brilliance! Shall we process them and send them to your room, young master? Barrymore asked. No need, Vakir said. I'll take them as is. Barrymore blinked again. Does he have peculiar tastes? But the truth was far from simple indulgence. Vakir had no intention of eating the beans. He was preparing for the practical exam in 5 days. And on that day, a catastrophe would unfold, one unlike anything that had ever occurred within the Baskerville clan. In this world, the Baskerville family was known by another name, the Berserker family, a title earned not by their wealth or status, but by the sheer brutality of their upbringing. From the moment a Baskerville child could take their first step, their training began. To build basic stamina, they were forced to run up steep mountainsides. Lying down or resting on their stomachs outside of allocated times was strictly forbidden. When it came time to sleep, they were made to do so beside the cold, decaying corpse of a monster, all to train their minds to endure horrific conditions. This relentless regime continued until the children turned 8. At that age, they would face the deadly evaluation, a trial so grueling and unforgiving that it had become the stuff of cruel legend, earning the family its infamous nickname. Today was the day of that evaluation. Far from the safety of their towering estate, deep in the outskirts of Baskerville territory, the young hounds of the family had gathered. Before them loomed the blood-stained peaks of Le Rouge et Le Noir Mountain, a monster-infested wilderness where the strong lived and the weak were consumed. Standing before the children was their instructor, a man as ruthless as the family itself, Shadow Dog, Pavlov Baskerville. "Young masters," Pavlov began, his deep voice echoing through the cold mountain air. "The basic contents of the practical evaluation are simple. You will survive here for 1 month." A tense silence fell over the gathered children. "You will hunt large, dangerous monsters, and you must remember these conditions," Pavlov continued. "Survive, and gain 10 points. Survive without becoming disabled, 30 points. If you survive and defeat other young masters, 50 points. Survive after defeating a monster, 70 points. Fulfill all of these conditions, and you will receive 90 points. He let the numbers hang ominously in the air before adding, "Additionally, if you steal a badge from another participant, you will gain extra points." Then came the final rule, cold and absolute. If you die, 0 points. There are no 100 points. Pavlov's sharp gaze swept over the assembly. "I trust you remember Sir Hugo's lesson. A swordsman dies the moment they grow arrogant. We do not advise venturing into the deeper areas. Le Rouge et Le Noir Mountain is a restricted zone filled with countless undiscovered things. Stay within the areas we've cleared." He gestured behind him. "During the exam, shadow dogs, our guardian knights, will be hiding in the shadows, watching and grading you." Among the young hounds, a boy whispered, wide-eyed, "That's him, the one who stayed in the Styx River for 7 minutes. Rumor has it he strangled 2 vipers in his cradle. I even heard he got full marks on the theory exam. Let's see if he's as good with a sword." Vakir van Baskerville stood quietly, ignoring the stares. Le Rouge et Le Noir Mountain, huh? He thought. It's been a while since I've been here. Pavlov raised a hand. "At the sound of the bell, the exam begins. I pray for your fortune, young masters." The bell rang. Vakir moved immediately. "I need to hurry and secure a good position. I'll go to the spot I remember from last year's exam." Another boy scoffed. "There's no way you can survive alone. I'll follow him and take it from here." The Trident of Baskerville quickly huddled. "Go and occupy the place from over there," Middleborough ordered. "Don't order me around," Lowborough snapped. Highborough huffed. "I'll do my own thing. You guys handle yourselves." Pavlov watched as the young hounds scattered into the trees. So it's begun. Within the exam, while killing wasn't explicitly forbidden, it was heavily discouraged. Deducted points and punishments followed. Still, in the Baskerville way, no one expected mercy. Shadow dogs would be watching from the shadows to keep casualties to a minimum. One such observer, a shadow dog stationed nearby, tracked Vakir's movements. This area is close to the restricted zone. Where is young Master Vakir going? The observer narrowed his eyes, curiosity stirring. Was the rumor about him being a genius fake? Or is he planning something? I was hoping to see something impressive, unaware of the watchful gaze, or perhaps aware and simply not caring. Vikir found the familiar stretch of ground. Was it around here? He knelt, testing the earth beneath his fingers. Good, the soil soft enough. With no hesitation, he began digging a shallow hole, then sat back against a tree, letting out a satisfied breath. Since I've picked my territory for now, might as well take a break. From his hidden perch, the shadow dog's eyes widened. A break? He's actually resting? How long has it been since he stopped? Besides this, all he's done is hunt small game and gather equipment. The guard's brow furrowed. Is he just going to hide here? Was the genius thing exaggerated? If that's all, there's no need to keep watching. A few minutes later, the shadow dog quietly left. Vikir opened his eyes. Finally, he's gone. He reached into his pack and pulled out the cacao beans, the bloody beans. Their rich, bitter aroma filled the air. It brought back memories of his scouting days. He remembered being told that cacao beans could cut the fishy stench of monster meat. And these bloody beans, concentrated with intense cacao, were the best for it. The interference is gone, and I've finished everything I needed to prepare. Time to begin the real hunt. A few days later, inside the restricted area, past the marked boundary lay an untouched, dangerous land filled with monsters even the Baskervilles rarely dared confront. But for Vikir, it was familiar ground. In his past life, he'd wandered these trails countless times during his scouting days. A sharp, burning scent pricked his nostrils. There it is, the acrid stench of scorched earth and the charred remnants of tree roots. Vikir crouched low, inspecting the scene. That guy's habitat should be nearby. He moved deeper, following the signs. Soon he found it, a small clearing littered with blackened, ashen remains. And in the center, unmistakable evidence, burning stool. Vikir's lips curved into a grin. Only one monster leaves droppings like that around here. A hellhound. In his past life, these creatures had been a source of constant trouble during scouting. Yet now, standing on the other side of life and death, Vikir felt a strange sense of excitement. Back then, I thought these things were nothing but a pain. But now, seeing this again, I'm actually happy. And with that, the real hunt began. The lookout monster that swallowed the hellfires of the oil world, the Hellhound. Vikir van Baskerville's sharp eyes fixed on the monstrous creature before him, its eyes glowing like smoldering coals in the shadows of Le Rouge et Le Noir mountain. In his previous life, he'd barely managed to take down a single hellhound alone at the age of 18. And now, as an 8-year-old child, the idea of facing it head-on was far beyond reckless. Of course, Vikir thought grimly, being 8 now, it's far more impossible for me to defeat it in direct combat. But impossibility meant nothing to a man who had already lived and died once. He knew something others didn't, ways to bend the odds. However, I know a way, a method where even a child can take on a hellhound. Hellhounds had weaknesses, 2 glaring ones in fact. First, they could only run in straight lines. They struggled to make sharp turns or sudden directional changes. Second, for reasons unknown even to monster scholars, lookout monsters like hellhounds were unable to cross bodies of water. Even the shallowest streams slowed them considerably. And when they ran, as all canine monsters did, they instinctively opened their mouths. And what happens to a canine monster when it ingests chocolate? Vikir's lips curled into a grin. It's poison, a fatal one. But not just any chocolate. The bloody beans he'd gathered were no ordinary cacao. A single one of those could make 100 liters of chocolate. If a hellhound swallowed even a fragment of that, it wouldn't stand a chance. I guess even the hounds of hell can't win against chocolate. The poison would first attack the hellhound's stomach and heart, but those organs were shielded by the creature's thick, solid ribs, which means the only spot I can aim for is the kidney, the one place where the ribs don't protect. And so, Vikir prepared his trap. The battle began. When a monster was defeated, An invisible energy called experience or karma would gather in the victor's body, strengthening them. Vikir could already feel it. His short sword, once heavy, felt lighter in his grasp now. Each movement smoother, each strike faster. At this rate, he mused, I'll catch up to where I was before my regression, before I even come of age. He pictured the expression Hugo would make when an 8-year-old bastard child dragged home a monster with a risk rating of B+. The thought alone was enough to steel his will. With this, Vikir thought, I've already secured first place in the practical exam. And I've decided on my reward. Something enormous. Something I'd never dared ask for in my past life. He didn't need gold or titles. I'll take something priceless, the value of which no one in this era even understands. And then, I'll take his head. But then, more hellhounds appeared, emerging from the shadows, their crimson eyes reflecting hatred and vengeance. They must have heard its cries, Vikir murmured, raising his blood-stained sword. Do you intend on avenging your kind? How heartwarming. He chuckled darkly. I never planned to kill just one anyway. Reaching into his pouch, he pulled out more bloody beans. Come on, I've still got plenty left. A strange thing happened. The monsters, notorious for never submitting even in the face of death, flinched. They could sense it, like an 8-year-old, radiating a killing intent so sharp it made even seasoned hunters tremble. And then, something worse appeared. Could it be a Cerberus? The massive 3-headed hound limped into view, its risk rating an astonishing A+. Its territory was supposed to be the 7th ridge, far from here. What's it doing down here on the 1st? Then Vikir noticed. It was bleeding, riddled with multiple arrows and deep gashes. Its breathing was ragged. Someone had been chasing it. Across those mountains lies the barbarian tribe's territory, so it came here seeking refuge. Vikir's eyes gleamed. An injured A+ rank monster. A chance like this wouldn't come again. I need to kill it no matter what. In secret, Vikir had long hidden his true strength back at the Baskerville household. Even now, no one knew he had quietly reached the level of a sword expert, having already mastered the Baskerville third technique, a technique most hounds wouldn't reach until adulthood. Now, his hand tightened around the hilt of his sword. I can do it, he whispered to himself. An injured Cerberus is doable. Before his regression, Vikir had fought in brutal wars against the demon clans. His swordsmanship, forged through endless bloodshed, had long been stripped of wasteful movement. Each strike was direct, efficient, deadly. And thanks to the Styx River's blessing, his body now held strength far beyond that of any 8-year-old. The battle was fierce. Vikir moved like a shadow, striking at the beast's injuries. The Cerberus roared, lunged, swiped, but Vikir pressed the attack, weapons and bloody beans working together to poison and wound the massive creature. For a moment, it seemed like the plan was working, but then a single moment of carelessness. The Cerberus lashed out, one massive claw catching Vikir squarely in the side. The impact sent him flying. Vikir's body slammed against the rocky ground, pain bursting through his ribs. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. Damn it. I let my guard down, and the Cerberus, still snarling, still wounded, wasn't done yet. Vikir van Baskerville spat a thick line of blood from his mouth, his vision swimming. Did I lose consciousness? His mind struggled to reorient itself. A dull, gnawing pain radiated through his left arm. He glanced down. Is it ripped out? The limb was still attached, but the damage was grave. The Cerberus's direct strike had crushed through his guard like paper. The only reason I'm still alive is the blessing of the Styx River. Hooray for the Styx River. He managed a bitter grin through the pain. But the reality was clear. While the Styx had hardened his flesh and bones beyond a normal human's, the damage was still there. He could barely lift his left arm, and a second hit would undoubtedly be fatal. Difficult voyages require experienced hunters to find the best way out, he reminded himself, and the best possible decision right now wasn't prideful combat. I have to run. Fast. With my tail tucked between my legs. Had the Cerberus not already been badly injured from those barbarian hunters over the mountain, Vikir would have been torn apart before now. He owed them his life. If I can just get past that iron fence, out of the restricted area, I can make it to the place I prepared. If I reach it, it'll be my win. But if it catches me before then, I'm dead." He bolted. Branches whipped his face as he tore through the forest. "Where is it? It should be around here somewhere." Panic clawed at his chest, but then, there it was. Found it. A crude pit lined with sharpened wooden spears, stained with a dark, oily substance. Just a bit further, a bit more. Now. Vikir leapt into the trap's mouth, rolling aside. "Welcome to the cradle of swords, Cerberus," he whispered through clenched teeth. It had originally been a snare meant for hellhounds, a place where their speed would trap them in narrow paths, forcing them into poisoned spears. But it would serve well enough now. After all, Cerberus was a canine monster too. The bloody bean essence I rubbed into the wooden spears should act as poison to them. Even a high-ranking demon like you can't escape it. The beast snarled and leapt into the pit after him. Vikir was already moving, grabbing one specially prepared spear, the head laced not only with bloody bean extract, but with a venom-tipped fang of a bloody mamba, a deadly weapon he'd hidden years ago as a child, long forgotten by others. He hurled it with everything he had left. The spear struck true, lodging into the beast's side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Vikir counted under his breath. The Cerberus staggered, its massive body quivering. The rumors were true, Vikir thought grimly. Once struck with the bloody mamba's venom, you can't take more than 7 steps before your heart gives out. The Cerberus let out a final strangled growl. All 3 heads dropped lifelessly to the dirt. Vikir collapsed to one knee, panting heavily. I can feel its energy seeping into me. The surge of karma, the strengthening of his body, the invisible rush of experience, all flooded through him. He'd done it. Finally, all 3 heads are dead. A small, tired grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. Now, how am I going to carry this thing back? The cause of death would be obvious. There'd likely be questions. But perhaps the guardian knight who saw him carving those wooden spears earlier might serve as a witness. But first, there was something else, far more important to do. Cerberus were gatekeepers by nature. Monsters of their rank typically guarded something, be it a treasure hoard, a sealed chamber, or a dungeon. It must have been protecting its dungeon nearby. If Vikir could find it, the rewards would be invaluable. Dungeons were mysterious places that sometimes held rare treasures, and more often than not, powerful monsters used them as their lairs. And now that the gatekeeper's dead, it should be empty. To mask his scent from any small monsters nearby, Vikir smeared some of the Cerberus's feces onto his clothing. He then knelt, examining the ground. Dried soil, rotten leaves, moist roots, scattered footprints, drops of saliva, all signs of the beast's passage. He followed the trail carefully, backtracking its steps. Then, after several tense minutes, he found it. A half-collapsed burrow entrance, choked with tangled roots and half-rotten leaves. The air reeked of old blood and monster musk. "This is it," Vikir whispered. The dungeon the Cerberus was guarding. He remembered this place now. In his past life, it had gone undiscovered for a decade more. When they finally found it, it was long emptied of any treasure. But not this time. He crouched low, feeling the faint, eerie pull of mana in the air. It lingered beneath the surface, like the cold breath of a buried ghost. It hasn't been cleared yet. No light glimmered from within. I guess it's deeper than I thought. His pulse quickened. I wonder what kind of treasures are waiting inside. Veins of deep crimson minerals glimmered along the walls, catching the faint flicker of light. Vikir van Baskerville brushed his fingers against the jagged ruby stones embedded in the rock. This must be connected to Red All Mountain. His sharp eyes caught a soft glow deeper ahead. Light? Is that the entrance to the dungeon? Cautiously, Vikir crept forward, peering over a ridge into the hollow. Inside, a pale red brilliance filled the chamber, the glow emanating from countless ruby deposits along the walls. The air shimmered with mana-infused light. The rubies. They're imbued with mana, lighting the whole dungeon. His gaze dropped, and there, slumped against a rock, was a decayed skeleton. Vikir stepped closer, eyes narrowing. The bones were old, brittle. Brown stains clung to the ribs and skull, dried blood from stab wounds. Someone was here before me. He crouched beside the corpse, noting a worn scrap of parchment held between brittle fingers. Curious, he took the note and began to read. It doesn't matter what my name is. I'll just call myself Kane. There's no need to dirty this white paper with my name. Vikir's brow furrowed. This handwriting, it's a Baskerville's. His heart quickened. Another of his bloodline had reached this place. He kept reading. I write this so that future generations do not make the same mistake I did. This stone chamber has been whispered of within the family for generations. My brother Abel and I stumbled upon it by chance. Together we braved the dungeon's countless trials. We fought and killed monsters and reached the final chamber, only to face an assignment that bound us here for 3 long years. Vikir's eyes widened. 3 years? Just for a treasure? The note continued. The final trial was a riddle. When entering, it's 1, but once inside, it's 2. When leaving, it's 1. My brother and I contemplated it endlessly. In time, we came to a grim conclusion. We were twins. 1 in our mother's womb, but 2 when born. To claim the treasure, we believed we had to become 1 again. Vikir exhaled quietly, already guessing what came next. We fought. In the end, I killed my brother. Yet even then, nothing changed. Though I stood alone in this chamber, the treasure did not yield to me. I had killed my own brother for nothing. In despair and regret, I resolved to leave this place, and I write this warning. To those who find this chamber, leave at once. There's nothing here but a devil's trick designed to torment men's hearts. Vikir let the note fall. So in the end, they crossed countless dangers only to leave empty-handed. A grim smile touched his lips. But unlike them, I don't have a twin, which means the assignment remains, but Cain and Abel misunderstood it. He repeated the riddle aloud, voice echoing faintly in the crimson-lit chamber. When entering, it's 1, but once inside, it's 2. When leaving, it's 1. He began pacing. What could it mean? There was no dungeon without a solution. That was one of the few constants of this world. Vikir's eyes swept the space again, the dark passage behind him, the bright light of the ruby chamber. Then it struck him. Ah, I see it now. A low chuckle escaped his throat. Cain and Abel were simply unlucky. It wasn't a trick aimed at them specifically. The problem was that they were 2. It's because there were 2 of them that they misread the meaning. He stood at the edge of the dark corridor where it met the glowing chamber, observing the interplay of light and shadow. A dark passageway and a brightly lit chamber. I am 1 when I enter this darkness. But as soon as the ruby's light hits me, I cast a shadow, and then I become 2, myself and my shadow. The moment darkness returns, I become 1 again. His grin deepened. The answer is shadow. The cause of the brothers' deaths wasn't a cursed treasure or some devil's trick. It was their own assumptions, their fixation on blood and kinship. The relic of the so-called devil's den lay just ahead, and then he saw it. A black blade suspended above an ancient stone pedestal. Its surface seemed to swallow the ruby's glow, a dark gleam that radiated hunger. Vikir's breath hitched. Only those with Baskerville blood can claim Beelzebub. His memory flashed, a faded picture book from his past life. A gluttonous fly, the great monster, Beelzebub. One of the devil's 7 calamities, the holy constellations that had once nearly consumed the continent. 7 families had each faced a constellation in ancient times. The first Baskerville patriarch had faced gluttony, Beelzebub, and according to old, discarded legends, the remnants of Beelzebub's demonic corpse were buried somewhere in Baskerville lands, its unholy energy luring monsters to their territory. No one believed those stories anymore, but now, here it was. Proof. In the past, this blade fell into demon hands. The war, the massacre of humans on the battlefield, all because of this. Fakir clenched his jaw. But not this time. This time, it's mine. He reached out. His fingertips brushed the hilt. Immediately, a pulse of sinister energy surged through his arm. His skin burned, black lines searing up his hand and wrist. A lesser man might have screamed. Fakir only gritted his teeth, his eyes alight, a blade forged from the corpse of a devil's holy constellation. He tightened his grip. I really lucked out. The pain licked at his nerves like fire, but he only welcomed it. I wonder how much stronger I'll become in this life. And for the first time in years, perhaps lifetimes, Fakir van Baskerville felt excitement, pure and untainted. After securing the blade of Beelzebub, Fakir van Baskerville scanned the dungeon chamber one last time. Doesn't seem like there's anything else worth taking. Guess it's time to head back. But just as he turned, a strange wave of dizziness struck him. His knees buckled, and he collapsed to the ground. "What the hell?" he muttered, clutching his stomach. "I'm dizzy. No. Hungry?" His hand, still clinging to Beelzebub, seemed to pulse and shift unnaturally. A dark aura coiled around it, an insatiable craving gnawing at his core. "Are you asking for something to eat?" A voracious hunger twisted inside him, squeezing his stomach like a tightening vice. His heightened senses picked up a rich, metallic scent nearby. "Is that food?" Dragging himself up, he staggered toward the source. There, lying cold and stiff, was the corpse of the hellhound he had killed earlier. Without hesitation, Beelzebub's dark energy extended toward the dead beast. Fakir could feel the blood being drawn in through the blade, seeping into his own body, the gnawing ache in his stomach slowly abating. "I see. This blade's been starving for years," he grimaced. "No wonder Le Rouge et Le Noir Mountains' trees and soil have been so dried out. How much am I going to have to feed this bastard to keep it satisfied?" A sudden realization struck him. Is this Beelzebub's inherent ability? The legend spoke of the gluttonous Beelzebub, gluttony of flies, a being said to possess the power to devour the skills of others, absorbing their abilities into its own. It was a dreadful force, one said to have rendered countless warriors powerless, turning them into hollow shells. Of course, Fakir understood such a power had limits, at least for now. Seems like I can only absorb up to 3 abilities for the moment. As the blood of the hellhound was absorbed, text scrolled before his inner vision. Acquired ability, hemorrhage, hellhound, risk rating B+, a skill that forced an opponent's wounds to bleed continuously, even from the slightest scratch. Then came another. Acquired ability, burn injury, Cerberus, risk rating A+, a devastating pain-inducing skill inflicting searing agony far worse than normal wounds. And one more. Acquired ability, high-speed regeneration, F. Fakir blinked. High-speed regeneration. Then he recalled the swear rat that had been crushed beneath the Cerberus's body during their battle. It must have devoured that too. Still, to have gained a burn injury skill from a Cerberus was a monumental achievement. Thermalgia, the pain induced by burn injuries, was said to be one of the most excruciating sensations a human could experience. Combined with the hemorrhage skill, he was amassing a lethal arsenal. He sighed. "All right, now that the monster corpses are ready to be submitted for the practical exam, why don't I hole up here until it's over?" And so, the days passed. One by one, the young hounds completed their examinations and returned to Baskerville. The evaluations followed, with each child rewarded with a shield, sword, or necklace crafted from the monsters they'd hunted. Yet one prize stunned the Baskervilles into silence. Hugo Le Baskerville, the patriarch, stared down at the bloodied Cerberus corpse presented before him. His eyes narrowed. "Who caught that?" he demanded. Butler Barrymore stepped forward. "Master Fakir van Baskerville, from the 8-year-old class. He crossed into the restricted area by accident during the exam and slew the Cerberus, a monster with an A+ risk rating." Hugo raised a brow. Even the Guardian Knights tend to avoid that beast. The Cerberus was already wounded by a barbarian hunting party. Master Fakir applied poison to his wooden spear and managed to kill it, Barrymore explained. "What kind of poison could bring down a Cerberus?" Hugo's voice was sharp. And how did the boy obtain it? I intended to ask, but the young master retired to his dormitory claiming exhaustion. Hugo scoffed lightly. That little bastard's already that cunning, eh? Well, information is power, and power is worth. Barrymore hesitated, then spoke honestly. Truthfully, I was surprised, sir, to think a boy named Van, rather than Eli or La, could possess such talent. The patriarch's gaze turned cold. Seems you don't understand, butler, Hugo said. I am not like the patriarchs before me. When I raise a hound, I care little for their bloodline. It doesn't matter whether they come from a line of royals or whores. All that matters is talent and spite. Mark my words, a mutt can come from royal blood too. Barrymore bowed his head, silently thinking. Is he worried about his second son's upcoming isolation training? Enough, Hugo said at last, but I'll need a mood booster. Summon Master Vikir. Soon after, Vikir stood before him. I heard you caught the Cerberus during your practical exam, Hugo stated. How? I put chocolate on my wooden spear, Vikir answered plainly. Chocolate? For canid monsters, chocolate is a lethal poison, Vikir explained, his expression calm. Oh ho, Hugo chuckled. So that's why you asked for chocolate before? Yeah. Barrymore, standing nearby, could only think. They're diving straight into the subject without a word of greeting. Is this really how a father and son talk? Hugo's tone darkened. I heard you evaded the butler's questioning about the hunt. Why? Vikir's gaze didn't waver. Because he's not my master. Then who is? I belong to the clan, and the master of the clan is my master as well. Hugo's lips curved into a satisfied grin. You've learned well. As a reward, the patriarch declared that the entire corpse of the Cerberus would belong solely to Vikir. Additionally, he was granted a wish for achieving the highest score. Vikir felt his pulse quicken. Yes. Finally. I would like access to the 10,000 epistle library, he said without hesitation. The library, one of the largest in the empire, was sealed deep within Baskerville territory, its contents restricted to the patriarch, the second in command, and their direct descendants. Hugo eyed him. You realize only those of direct lineage may enter? If it's not permitted, I'll withdraw my request, Vikir replied carefully, though inwardly he was already devising a plan to sneak in. But to his shock, Hugo nodded. You may enter. Make sure you read the Baskerville 6th technique in the 6th restricted zone. That's an order. Vikir fought to keep his face neutral. The 6th technique. I can't believe he's letting an illegitimate child named Van pass the 4th technique. This has never happened in Baskerville's history, but he pushed aside his surprise. No need to be shaken, it's only the 6th. Hugo's cultivation level before my regression was already at the 7th, and he was capable of bearing 9 of his fangs. Vikir's eyes glinted coldly. I haven't forgotten the life of discrimination I endured as a bastard. This time, I will surpass Hugo, and I'll claim the ultimate secret of Baskerville for myself, the textbook containing the teachings of the first patriarch who conquered the 7 great disasters. And when the time came, Hugo would be the one to hand it over. I look forward to it, Hugo said, rising to leave. Good luck. Thank you, my lord, Vikir replied smoothly. I'll be sure to exceed your expectations. Though, he thought to himself with a smirk, you won't even realize the true value of the random book you'll be handing me. Vikir van Baskerville stood before the grand gates of the 10,000 Epistle Library, a towering fortress of books, secrets, and ancient power buried deep within the Baskerville estate. So this is the 10,000 Epistle Library. It's my first time coming here in person. He stepped inside, his eyes sweeping over the endless rows of leather-bound tomes. The faint scent of aged parchment and manna hung in the air. Severing incisors, grinding molars, piercing canines, snaggletooth that embeds twice, wisdom teeth that lay down. Every title spoke of swordsmanship. Books filled with techniques he'd only dreamed of in his past life, the swordsmanship I desperately longed for. In the old days, no matter how much mana an illegitimate child like him possessed, it was forbidden to learn techniques beyond the 4th. a cruel safeguard to ensure no stray hound ever turned its fangs against its master. Vakir smirked. Is this it? Before his regression, Hugo would never have allowed this. He knew why the patriarch permitted it now, because he assumed an 8-year-old could never possibly memorize such a complex book in a single day. But what Hugo didn't know was that Vakir had, in his past life, studied the theories behind the first to fourth techniques until he was sick of them. He'd spent years trying to deduce the fifth technique through sheer speculation. He now realized where he had failed. After drawing the fourth tooth, I needed to stop the mana flow. That's why I could never make the fifth tooth manifest. In Baskerville's swordsmanship, each stage was marked by the drawing of a tooth. One for the first technique, 2 for the second, and so on, with each stage manifesting a distinctive red sword aura. But Vakir wasn't here for the 6th technique. I don't care about the 6th. The real reason I came to the 10,000 Epistle Library is something else, a hunger stronger than anything. As he moved, 2 guards stationed near the shelves called out, "Young Master Vakir, leaving already?" Vakir kept his voice even. "I've finished what I came for." One of the guards blinked. "Already? Why not stay longer? There are swordsmanship books in the inner halls you might want to see. I might read some other books before I go. Don't worry about me. Do what you need to." As they turned away, Vakir caught their murmurs. "That section's full of dusty, useless books," one guard whispered. "Yeah, if it were me, I'd head straight for the swordsmanship tomes. Does he not understand their value because he's just a kid?" Vakir smirked inwardly. Let them think what they want. He made his way to the neglected corner of the library, where miscellaneous books gathered dust. And there, nestled between cracked spines and discarded manuscripts, he found it. Found it. His fingers brushed against the faded cover. A lurking ambush. A book no one touched, its pages torn, dismissed as useless. But Vakir knew the truth. In his past life, within the hound squad he was assigned to, they'd once stumbled upon a strange relic deep within a dungeon at the border of Le Rouge et Le Noir mountain. It had been a single torn page from a swordsmanship book written in Baskerville's distinct calligraphic hand. Back then, Hugo had gone mad over it. He ransacked the entire library to find the matching book and discovered it was a lurking ambush. What appeared to be a basic swordsmanship primer held far more than it revealed. Within it, hidden by missing pages, was the Baskerville 10th technique. Driven by obsession, Hugo unleashed the hounds across the continent, launching covert wars against the other great families who held the remaining pages. Thousands of hounds perished, drowned in bloodshed. And for what? So Hugo could claim those pages and achieve the 9th technique. But in that life, it was Vakir himself who retrieved the scattered remnants, paid for in scars and grief. He remembered every word, every stroke of ink on those pages. The reason I could never surpass the 4th technique wasn't my talent. It was because I never had access to this book. To others, it reads like nonsense. But if you fill in the blanks with the missing pages, the meaningless passages transform into a masterpiece. He gripped the book tightly. I reached the highest grade of graduation aura and mastered the 4th technique before I regressed. Before I turn 15 this time, I'll take back everything I lost. He pored over the book, hours blurring into a single burning moment of focus. Did I spend the whole day here? The 10,000 Epistle Library grew silent. Not even the Guardian Knight's presence lingered. His pulse quickened. I can't draw the 10th tooth with a child's body yet. But now, maybe I can finally manifest the 5th technique I could never reach in my past life. Vakir concentrated, his breathing steady as he summoned his aura. Baskerville's 1st technique, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. In my past life, despite all my effort, I couldn't move beyond the 4th. The direct bloodline looked down on me for it. The reason? Because I was born a bastard. Do you think I'll live that life again? A surge of heat burst from deep within his chest, rising to his throat. A faint, crimson glow gathered around his sword hand. The 5th tooth. He felt it. That sharp, searing presence, and his eyes stung with the urge to cry. I did it. I drew the fifth tooth. He stood alone in that silent library, basking in the moment of triumph. Is there a sword here? He whispered. For the first time in Baskerville's long, merciless history, a young hound's fangs were already bearing themselves toward his master at a record-breaking pace. And they were only going to grow sharper. Vikier van Baskerville could still feel the lingering heat along his arm as he stepped out of the 10,000 epistle library. I finally succeeded in drawing the fifth tooth. A quiet smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. His mana felt denser now, his aura thicker, heavier, no longer the thin stream of energy from his previous sword expert stage. As long as my mana can support it, I can reach the level I reached before regression. He flexed his fingers, testing the new sensation. The aura flowing within him had shifted. It wasn't solid anymore. It had begun to liquefy. Liquid aura, the sign of a graduator. A milestone that had once taken him 30 long, blood-soaked years to reach in his previous life. He had now crossed it at just 8 years old. Graduators are on a different level from sword experts. Liquid aura meant more than just power. It meant control, versatility, a denser concentration of energy that could be manipulated freely. His swordsmanship, too, felt sharper, swifter than before his regression. I won't stop at the fifth technique this time. The old piercing fang technique he'd relied on before had let him rise quickly, but it came with limits. Now, with a lurking ambush in his hands, he could transition seamlessly between offense and defense without those limitations. If I put my mind to it, I might even be able to challenge a mid-class graduator now. A 100% chance in an assassination, 50% in a head-on fight. Of course, he couldn't show that much yet. I have to carefully decide how much to reveal to Hugo. Not too much, not too little. Enough to give him hope, and time for me to take everything I need. In this life, Hugo and the hounds would struggle for the 10th technique, but he, Vikier van Baskerville, would claim it for himself. His train of thought was interrupted by the guards noticing a faint, acrid scent. What's this smell? Young Master Vikier, what happened? Vikier looked down sheepishly at the smoldering book before him. Ah, sorry. I accidentally left a magnifying glass on it. It burned the book. The guards exchanged glances and exhaled in relief. Whew, as long as you're safe. It's our fault for not keeping a better eye on you. I don't think it was a particularly valuable book anyway, Vikier shrugged casually. Aren't you both busy with the Morgue clan over those ruby mines? I didn't expect you to have time for small problems like this. The guards chuckled. Since we weren't around when it happened, it's a small price to pay. As long as you keep this between us, we'll follow your lead. Vikier gave a small smile. Then let's keep it a secret. Of course, young master. As they walked off, one of the guards whispered to the other, He's such a nice kid. Yeah, thinks about the servants too. He deserves to be respected. Vikier barely registered the words, his mind already ahead. Later, he found himself summoned before Hugo Le Baskerville. So, you've had an enlightening, have you? The patriarch asked, peering down at the boy with those sharp, wolfish eyes. Vikier gave a mild nod. Of some sort. Oh? Hugo leaned forward, interested. Tell me, what exactly did you learn inside the library? Vikier thought for a moment, then answered, Something warm and sharp, yet soft and viscous. I felt something like that. Hugo's gaze sharpened. Don't tell me. Your aura. Aura. The defining trait that marked a swordsman's official entry into the true world of the sword. Even geniuses had to train without rest to reach a low-class sword expert by age 15. What am I getting excited for? He's only 8. Hugo chided himself, though he couldn't stop the pulse of curiosity. Can you show your father what you've learned? The patriarch asked. Vikir's lips curled faintly. Sure. Barrymore, standing nearby, frowned. Sir, how exactly are you planning to test the young master's skills? I was thinking of releasing a monster, Hugo replied casually. A hungry, feisty one. An orc. Risk rating C. A murmur rippled through the observing hounds. An orc? Don't you think that's overkill for an 8-year-old? Even a 15-year-old would struggle. Well, the Guardian Knights will intervene if needed, but none of them were prepared for what came next. The orc lumbered into the training yard, its eyes wild, mouth frothing. The fight began. Vikir moved swiftly, unnervingly so. The orc, caught off guard, grunted in shock as its flesh split open. Blood poured freely from the wound. Vikir smirked. It must be surprised. It's the first time it's bled like this. He knew something the others didn't. The orc's natural high-speed regeneration wouldn't work against the hemorrhaging effect of a hellhound's B-class skill. The hounds watching whispered in disbelief. He's only 8. How is he so fast? Is it possible to fight like that without even gathering mana? Meanwhile, Hugo observed, his sharp gaze narrowed. So, he's still testing me, Vikir thought. Then, with a sharp movement, Vikir's sword flashed, a crimson aura coating the blade. Barrymore's breath caught. That's an aura blade. Hugo stiffened. Barrymore swallowed hard, his voice low with awe. I'm certain of it. That's the aura of a low-class sword expert. Sir, we've just witnessed the birth of a genius. Is that what you think, Butler? Hugo murmured. I'd wager no other family in the Empire could produce a genius like this. But Hugo's face remained unreadable. Stop, Butler. He gestured toward the orc. There's something off. The hounds turned their gaze back to the monster. Its regeneration wasn't working. Blood still flowed from its wounds. He only won because the orc was too weak, Hugo said coolly. Why? Barrymore frowned. Why can't he just be proud for once? Vikir lowered his sword. Wait, father. Yes? Is there anything stronger than an orc? A ripple of stunned silence swept through the yard. Hugo's lips quirked upward. The boy was hungry for more. Good. Vikir van Baskerville watched the aftermath of his fight with the orc, the blood still soaking into the training yard soil. He could feel the eyes on him, the muttering, the stiffened postures of the hounds nearby. It'd be better to show off my power to a certain degree, he thought carefully. If I'm lucky, my progress will be acknowledged, and Hugo might separate me from him, maybe dispatch me to a remote region, or better yet, send me off to an academy. That would give me room to breathe and plot. Across the courtyard, Hugo Le Baskerville gave a cold laugh. It looks like the orcs I brought in from afar aren't enough to satisfy my son. His voice was laced with both amusement and something sharper, something dangerous, but Vikir heard opportunity in it. You're right, Hugo continued. You should be getting more real-life experience at that age. He turned to Barrymore. There's a creature we captured during the barbarian raid for experiments, isn't there? Barrymore gave a hesitant nod. Yes, Patriarch. There's just one left. It's been sensitive after being starved for a while. Bring it in. A moment later, the heavy gates clanged open. Vikir's eyes gleamed. A troll, he thought, a rush of old instincts and grim memories flashing through him. Father, Vikir asked lightly, may I start right away? Go ahead. The monstrous troll was dragged into the arena, growling, its skin as tough as leather, its muscles bulging from hunger and fury. The battle began immediately. The hounds watching from the sidelines exchanged murmurs. What a shame. That was his chance. Why didn't he attack? But Hugo's sharp eyes narrowed, a glimmer of approval in them. Good thinking. He understood what others didn't. Trolls had near unnatural regeneration. Only fatal strikes would mean anything, and hunting a troll required strategy, a plan. Vikir was demonstrating that. The hounds watched as the 8-year-old child dodged every strike by the troll, always just out of reach. Is he trying to tire it out? One of them murmured. An 8-year-old making that kind of judgment. Is he really a genius? Vikir, meanwhile, sighed inwardly. It's too slow. There's no excitement in this. He could kill the troll in an instant if he used his full, hidden strength. But that would draw too much attention, and worse, suspicion. No, it had to look plausible, as though he was gradually reaching his limit, and then making a breakthrough. I'll use its own strength against it. The hounds leaned in as Vikir countered one of the troll's wide swings, burying his blade deep into its side. "He slayed the troll," someone shouted, "but it'll recover in an instant unless it's fatal." "No way the Baskerville first technique is enough to kill a troll. Still, it's impressive for an 8-year-old. Vikir gritted his teeth. Certainly the first technique isn't enough to cut through that thick skin. The troll would die from Beelzebub's hemorrhage skill after a while, but that's meaningless. I need to end this cleanly, with a believable surge of power. "Enough!" Hugo finally called out. "Any more will be dangerous. Stop before—" "I'm almost done," Vikir said flatly, his voice steeled. A hush fell over the crowd. "I think I'm near an epiphany. If I can't kill it with this next attack, I'll give up." Hugo stared at him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "All right. Now, how much should I show?" Vikir thought carefully. "I've already decided. What I want to display is a scenario where I suddenly level up during battle. An awakening. I wonder how Hugo will react to that." In that moment, the air shifted. Among the iron-blooded sword clan Baskerville, a person's life was formulaically set. Most hounds only reached the point of channeling mana into their sword around the age of 15, attaining the Baskerville first technique then. The second technique came much later, at 18, if they survived that long. But now, for the first time in the clan's history, an 8-year-old stood in the yard, and the mark of the second technique shimmered around him. Vikir smiled, feeling the surge of power flow through his body. "Ha ha ha, I did it." "What have we just witnessed?" Hugo murmured, his expression unreadable. A week later, Vikir sat at the long dining table, the thick aroma of miscellaneous meat porridge filling the room. He stirred it absently with his spoon. "I'll never get used to this slop." Since the incident, the other young hounds had begun keeping their distance. It wasn't surprising. In this family, power was everything, and Vikir had shown too much of it. It was nice seeing Hugo caught off guard, though. What the others knew was that he had revealed his Baskerville second technique and reached mid-rank sword expert. What they didn't know was that in truth, he was a low-class graduator, capable of weakly performing the fifth technique with an arsenal of stolen monster skills. Stronger than the average graduator already. "I've definitely been eating a lot more since I got Beelzebub," he thought, frowning at the insatiable hunger gnawing at his stomach. His brooding was interrupted by a group of young hounds approaching. Vikir raised an eyebrow. "These bastards again? Was last time not enough?" Burrows, their unofficial leader, stepped forward awkwardly. "No, it's not like that. We just wanted to say, it's cool, you know, that you defeated the Cerberus and the troll." Another added, "Are you okay?" Vikir stared at them blankly. "What is this? A two-faced technique? Some kind of deceitful policy? I'm getting goosebumps." For a moment, he considered knocking them out and thinking about it later. Before he could, Barrymore appeared at his side. "Young Master Vikir." "Butler Barrymore?" Vikir asked, tilting his head. "You should hurry to the Patriarch's room." Vikir frowned. "What now?" Adolf Morg stepped into the grand hall with a wry smile. "It's been a while," he greeted. "You haven't changed at all. I hope this annual event goes smoothly." The Baskerville Patriarch grunted. "The joint training has always gone without a hitch." Adolf gave a dry chuckle. "There were 2 seriously injured last year, one from each family. I would consider that a hitch." "It was but a scratch," the Patriarch dismissed, waving a hand. "Morg's children seem to be quite the dramatic ones." "Of course," Adolf replied with mock dignity. "It's because us Morgs are noble and dignified. Once upon a time, the renowned mage clan Morg and the iron-blooded sword clan Baskerville had shared good relations. Magic and swords are a complementary pair, an old emperor once said, forging an alliance through joint training sessions. Only children between 8 and 15 could participate, and for years it had been a friendly event. That was until blood was shed over a ruby mine lying between their territories. Since then, the 2 patriarchs fell into bitter conflict. Yet, per the emperor's command, the joint training continued. This was why Adolf, the patriarch's younger brother, came in his stead now. Ah, yes, Adolf smirked. I heard a supernova's appeared in the Baskerville family, a rare genius born perhaps once in a century. It's a great blessing to the empire. It's not that big of a deal, the patriarch replied curtly. Adolf arched a brow. He's reacting to a compliment about his child. How unexpected. Well then, Adolf continued, we Morgs have our own genius. Camus, come in. A young girl stomped forward, her expression fierce. You're the thief that stole our ruby mine, aren't you? She yelled. Give it back. The patriarch's face darkened. Thief? Adolf winced. Camus, what is this impolite behavior? You said the annoying chinbeard stole the ruby mine, she accused, pointing. When did I say that? Adolf sputtered. Before you got off the carriage, an hour and 42 minutes ago, she shot back precisely. The patriarch twitched. Annoying chinbeard? Thief? Adolf forced a smile. There seems to be a misunderstanding. There's no need to explain the morgue's problems with child education to me, the patriarch muttered coldly. Give my rubies back. I can't do research because I don't have enough, Camus demanded. Camus! Adolf hissed in warning. Enough! The patriarch barked, his voice filling the hall. It seems the morgues don't teach manners at all. Adolf crossed his arms. And what do you plan on doing to a child? Threatening an 8-year-old, perhaps? I suppose the morgues don't teach their children not to envy what belongs to others. At that moment, Barrymore arrived, bowing. Patriarch, I've brought the young master. Adolf turned, curious. Is that child the Baskerville supernova? Camus' gaze snapped to Vikir as he entered. Hey, what did you just say? Vikir blinked, surprised. Camus? Is that Camus? Camus scowled. What's with that stupid face? Even though she was still just a child, Camus was destined to become the iron-blooded empress of the Morgue clan, a genius among geniuses, one who, at her peak, would eradicate monsters and barbarians in the Le Rouge et Le Noir mountains alone, earning the title Fire Goddess of Authority. But that was a story for the far future. For now, she was a short-tempered girl clinging to her rubies. Why's the ruby mine yours? It's mine, she shouted. You sure came a long way just to throw a tantrum, Vikir replied dryly. A tantrum? Camus gaped. Yes, a tantrum. Camus huffed. Then I'll explain why the ruby mine belongs to the morgues, so even a stupid mutt like you can understand. Vikir smirked. That sounds fun. Here, I'll explain simply for you. She waved her hands, forming an ice sculpture in the air. Vikir sighed. An ice sculpture? I thought we were going to fight. You should know, Camus began matter-of-factly, that top-grade rubies come from a mine situated on the border between Morgue and Baskerville called the Joint Security Area. The problem is, while the entrance is on Morgue territory, the mineral vein runs underneath Baskerville land. As you can see, it's situated so that the Baskervilles can't take the mine for themselves. That means the ruby mineral vein belongs to us Morgues. But you guys keep calling it trespassing, interrupting our mining operations, and rejecting our offer to pay rent for the land. Vikir crossed his arms. Rubies are commonly used for magic. The Baskervilles don't need to mine them. And territory rent fees? Please. It must be a tragedy for you Morgues that there isn't an idiot in Baskerville willing to open up land just to earn a few pennies. Camus' face turned red. Wait, you're saying Baskerville doesn't need rubies? That's right. We care only about our land. So I'm saying, don't come in. You're the ones who'll lose out in the end, she snapped. All right, I'll make sure you understand who owns the ruby mineral vein. This side is your land, and this mine, here? She pointed dramatically at her ice model, then jabbed her arm out. Then whose arm is this? Vikir gave her a blank look. You're asking whose arm that is in my land? Obviously. Mine, of course. What? Why would I be yours, stupid? Who said you're mine? Vikir shrugged. I'm saying your arm's mine. Camus froze. What? In the tense silence that followed, the patriarch, who'd been taking a swig of wine, choked. Hiccup! Vikir raised his arm, ready to cut through Camus' outstretched arm. Help me, uncle! Camus shrieked, panic flashing in her eyes as she darted behind Adolphe Morgue. Adolphe's face twisted in anger. Fool! Get away from my niece right now! Camus clung to her uncle's sleeve. Uncle, he tried to cut off my arm! Adolphe stormed toward the patriarch. Marquis, what the hell is the matter with your boy? The patriarch sighed, a trace of exasperation in his voice. Son, I think you've gone a bit too far with that joke. Vikir lowered his head. I apologize. It's a common joke pulled within the family. Adolphe glared. A joke? What kind of toys are you giving to these children? Vikir bowed again. I truly had no intention of making her cry. Allow me to apologize, sir. Within the Baskerville family, we often play like this from a young age. Adolphe scoffed. You think this is a joke? The patriarch spoke sharply. Deputy Patriarch Morgue, don't you think you're getting overly involved in children's play? Then, with a pointed look, he added, I had some ideas regarding the ruby mines. I'm sure you'd love to hear them. That's why we should complete the friendly duels first, don't you think? Camus scowled, her voice trembling with rage. I won't forget this. You'd better watch out. With the tension still thick in the air, the friendly duels between the Baskervilles and the Morgues commenced, the annual occasion where children aged 8 to 15 tested their skills against one another. Younger kids challenged each other in theory and mana sensitivity contests, while those closer to 15 dueled with real weapons and magic, drawing the most attention. But this year, everyone's eyes were fixed elsewhere. The duel between Camus Morgue, the genius mage of the Morgue clan, and Vikir van Baskerville, the monstrous prodigy of the Baskervilles, had stolen the spotlight. As per the Morgue's request, they would fight under practical combat rules, a rare duel between two acknowledged prodigies of their generation. Camus squared her shoulders. Get ready. Once I start, I won't hold back. In the stands, spectators murmured in awe. Is that quadracasting? The patriarch watched, astonished. To think she's already casting a spell difficult for a 15-year-old, and 4 of them at once. Truly a genius of the Morgue clan. Vikir smirked. Your spells are pretty flashy, but don't you think you'd be better off focusing on just one? Camus snorted. Why do you care? You're an idiot who doesn't even understand magic. She raised her hands. Sand wall. A thick wall of sand erupted between them. An idiot, huh? That's so harsh, Vikir muttered as he stepped forward. Camus' confidence wavered as she saw him effortlessly break through the wall. Is this the power of a Baskerville, one bathed in the river Styx? I let my guard down. Before she could react, Vikir flicked her forehead with a sharp snap of his finger. What a flick. Adolphe Morgue gaped. Camus glared. Why'd you flick me? Don't tell me you're going easy on me. I won't let you get away with this. Vikir shrugged. Your forehead might hurt. Don't you think we should end this here before things get out of hand? Coup! Sandwall X2! Camus chanted, summoning 2 layers this time. Ha 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 ha! Now there's 2 layers. You won't get through this. Vikir smirked, amused. What's the point if I just go around it? He sighed, then decided to humor her. Well, guess I'll play along. With a swift move, he reached his arm cleanly through the twin sand walls. Now, here's a question, Vikir teased, a mischievous glint in his eyes. I wonder whose arm just crossed this wall. Before Camus could answer, he flicked her forehead again, harder this time. She stumbled back, falling to the ground. I'll kill you! Ah! Camus screamed, fury boiling over. Vikir sighed. I thought she'd give up if I hurt her a little. Looks like dealing with children is tougher than I thought. He considered finishing it, although I could crush her neck in 0.1 seconds if I really tried. But that had caused too many problems. He glanced toward the sidelines. Might be better to let others deal with this. That idiot mage who keeps spamming flame spells, and the idiot swordsman who charges headfirst into magic. They might come in handy. Camus screeched again. Why aren't you getting hit, you bastard? Don't run away. Face me. Then her eyes narrowed dangerously. Let's see if you can slice through this. Come at me now. Vikir's gaze darkened. Camus Morgue. You'd better have a defensive spell ready. From the sidelines, Adolphe Morgue's face paled. No! The members of the Morgue clan leapt to their feet in alarm. Oh no, Lady Camus! They cried out in unison. Camus! Adolphe Morgue shouted, his voice thick with concern. Amidst the smoke, Camus heard her uncle's voice. Is that... Uncle? Panic coursed through her as she realized her situation. What should I do? I managed to avoid getting hurt with my defensive spell, but the flame spell burned all my clothes. The lingering smoke still concealed her, but it wouldn't last long. If people see me like this when the smoke clears, I'll be a laughingstock. Someone, please. A jacket dropped over her shoulders. You should put this on for now, Fakir said simply. Camus looked up in disbelief. Why are you protecting your enemy? Should I take it back then? No, that's not what I meant. But you'll be exposed too. I could care less about something like that, Fakir replied flatly. This idiot. Why is he taking care of me? Camus thought, biting her lip. Then she noticed the blood dripping from his arm. Hey, your arm. You're bleeding. Fakir glanced down. A scratch? On a body strengthened by the river Styx? The realization struck him. That idiot swordsman's blade must have had some residual aura left on it. Adolphe Morgue exhaled in relief. She's fine. Thank God. The hounds watching from the sidelines muttered amongst themselves. The Lady of Morgue is on the floor, but the one bleeding is the young Baskerville. It's hard to decide who actually won that match. Still, damn, look at those muscles. Must be the river Styx's work. Even for an 8-year-old, that's some terrifying physical conditioning. The patriarch approached, voice steady. So, Vikir, how was the battle with the Lady of the Morgue clan? It was interesting, Vikir replied. I've been reminded of the true purpose of this event. A battle with a mage is very different from one with a swordsman. And why didn't you finish her with a clean blow? Fakir hesitated for a moment. I was unsure how to deal with a lady. The patriarch's eyes narrowed. Letting your guard down in battle will lead to injury. Take that scratch as a lesson. Fakir's thoughts drifted as Hugo's words lingered. Hugo, worried about me? He tried to recall his memories of the man during his youth, but nothing came to mind. Hugo had always been cold, strict, brutal. Rumors claimed his personality had worsened after losing his first wife and eldest daughter. Not that it's my problem, Fakir thought darkly. Then, Hugo shifted the conversation. Now, what do you think we should do about the ruby mines? Fakir didn't hesitate. I believe we should give them away. Hugo raised an eyebrow. Give away control of the ruby mines? And what's your reasoning? The primary duty of the Baskerville clan is territorial expansion, Fakir explained. The Red All Mountain, where the ruby mines are located, sits downstream from Le Rouge et Le Noir Mountain. The monsters and barbarians living there will inevitably cause problems. If we use the Morgue clan properly, we can minimize our losses during expansion into that region. Once the Morgues gain control over the ruby mines, they'll assign a large number of people there. We can then drive the monsters and barbarians toward that area, cleaning up multiple issues at once. Hugo's expression twisted into a pleased grin. The rubies will be bathed in the blood of our enemies. If that happens, the Morgue clan won't dare cross into our land without hesitation. He chuckled. Your idea is about 90% in line with what I had in mind. Reaching out, he patted Fakir's head. Fakir's mind flashed back to his previous life. Of course, it was your plan all along. Back then, I was the one tasked with driving those monsters and barbarians into the Morgue's land. Even so, we should keep a close eye on their movements. But Hugo waved a hand. There's no need for that. I've already increased the number of hounds scouting the region. At that moment, Adolphe Morgue approached. You're here, Patriarch. May we speak before I take my leave? Hugo's sharp gaze met his. You have something to say, Deputy Patriarch? Adolphe nodded. Just one final matter. We've been considering ways to peacefully resolve the conflict regarding the ruby mines. The usage fees were just one suggestion, but there's another proposal. Hugo arched a brow. And what's that? Payment for opening up my territory? Adolf cleared his throat. An engagement, a marriage between the Morgue and Baskerville bloodlines. Hugo's expression darkened. Which children are you suggesting? The eldest son of the Baskervilles and my niece, Camus. Adolf gestured to Camus, who still clutched Vikir's jacket, glaring defiantly. My niece is extraordinary. She has beauty, knowledge, talent. She lacks nothing. I'm certain she'd make a fine match for the one they call the small son of the Baskerville clan. Hugo scoffed. My eldest is 25 this year. I assume you know the age gap? Adolf waved a hand dismissively. 8 and 25. Only a 17-year difference. Not that large a gap. Camus' face twisted in disgust. I will not marry anyone weaker than my mother. Adolf sighed. Camus, if your standard is someone stronger than your mother, you'll be alone your whole life. That's my condition, she snapped. And I hate large age gaps. I want someone my age, or younger. Hugo grunted. Child, this isn't a buffet where you pick and choose. I know, Camus snapped back. And I have no intention of playing house either. Adolf paled. Don't tell me. He leaned down, whispering sharply. You better not even think about it. He's a Van, not a Lee. No matter what happens, he'll always be a small fish in a big pond. Strangely, those words irritated Hugo. Well, Hugo said flatly, the most important thing in an engagement is what the two people involved think. He turned toward his son. Vikir, what are your thoughts? Vikir met his father's gaze, then shifted to Adolf Morg's shocked face, then to Camus' glare. I accept. Adolf's eyes bulged. What? This bastard! Adolf's face contorted in disbelief. He'll do as he's told? What kind of attitude is that towards the only daughter of the Morgue clan? Camus blinked. Wait, does that mean he's not opposed to the idea? Is he shyer than he lets on? Hugo spoke coolly, voice sharp and even. Names and titles have no meaning in the Baskerville household. Lackluster people come from those of Le Descent, and great people come from those of Van descent. Adolf snorted. Are you certain about this one? Vikir stared back silently, observing the man. Adolf Morg, a six-circle master, one of the strongest within the renowned Morg mage clan, a doting uncle, and a man with heavy influence within the empire. Vikir knew Adolf wouldn't simply hand his precious niece over to anyone. Adolf's eyes narrowed as he stepped closer. Child, I don't think it's quite wise to tell you this, but we can't have just anyone become Camus's husband. An engagement is more than a suggestion between clans. It carries weight. His gaze swept over Vikir's sturdy frame. Why is this child's body so solid? When Adolf noticed Vikir wasn't responding, his irritation flared. Why aren't you answering? Are you even listening? I wasn't listening to you, Vikir said flatly, ever since you said it wasn't quite wise to tell me that. Camus gasped. To say something like that right in front of my uncle, but Adolf let out a deep rumbling laugh. Ha ha ha! Patriarch, may I have the chance to engage in a deeper conversation with this child? Hugo raised a brow. Don't tell me. Is the Empire's great mage planning to scold an 8-year-old? Adolf chuckled. Ha, no. He's the child that might become my niece's husband. This isn't a request as deputy patriarch of the Morgue clan, but a personal request as an uncle. Uncle, you don't have to do this, Camus said quickly, a hint of unease in her voice. You stay still, Adolf replied, his expression softening for a brief second. This was bound to happen to someone eventually. He turned to Hugo. Would you kindly allow it, Patriarch? Hugo smirked. If you're that adamant, fine. Adolf stepped forward, eyes glinting. Child of Baskerville, I'll be testing your ability. Show me everything you're capable of. Vikir gave a small nod. Yes, I understand. Though if I actually showed you everything, you might pass out, old man. Adolf lifted a hand and summoned an intricate spell formation. I'll give you a handicap. Camus, watching closely, muttered, He's making a pot. That's my uncle for you. simultaneously using fire, earth, and water magic perfectly. A pot of water hovered above Adolf's head, rippling gently. "I'll duel you like this," Adolf declared. "If you can force even a single drop of water to fall from this pot, you win." Adolf Morg, Vikir thought grimly. He would have been a difficult opponent even before my regression. This is a rare chance to gauge his power and Hugo's expectations. In my past life, my odds of success against him? About 50% in an assassination, 10% head-on. He steeled himself. No need to go all out. I just have to show enough. Camus called out, "You can't just rush straight at Uncle." "Why would you tell him that, my dear niece?" Adolf laughed. "Still, shield magic is most effective against swordsmen. It'll be tough for most aura swords to pierce through." Adolf's grin widened. "Now then, let's see how you handle this." He unleashed a sudden barrage of spells, his movements swift and practiced. "Uncle, that's unfair," Camus protested. "You never use magic like that when I duel you." Adolf gave a playful shrug. "Honey, whose side are you on right now?" He turned back to Vikir. "You brat, I won't forgive you now." Hugo's sharp eyes followed every motion. He's attacking at a speed that makes dodging difficult, but not impossible. No need to intervene. Vikir braced himself. Time to show this old man what a young hound is capable of. The duel began in earnest. Adolf unleashed relentless waves of spells, but Vikir met them head-on. So this is what he's capable of? The advantage I have is that I'm 8 after regression, with a lifetime of combat experience in my head. Adolf smirked. "It won't matter what you try. No sword will pierce through my shield." But then he noticed something odd. Why is he attacking the exact same spot over and over, like a machine? Adolf had to admit, the kid's precision and unwavering focus were impressive. However, this is like banging your head against a wall. He should have considered the durability of his sword and my shield. It's good to be focused, but you have to know your opponent. You've got talent, kid, but you're too weak to support my niece. Suddenly, a loud clang rang out. A fragment of Vikir's broken sword shot upward, puncturing the hovering pot. Water poured down in a stream. Adolf blinked, dumbfounded. "A piece of the sword pierced the pot," he muttered. His eyes widened. "It's full." Vikir lowered his sword. "I was talking about the pot, of course." Camus stared, stunned. He won. Although it was probably a coincidence, does that mean marriage? Hugo, however, wasn't fooled. "Coincidence?" he scoffed. "Having a broken shard coincidentally pierce a pot like that?" A wide, rare grin spread across the patriarch's face. "Vikir van Baskerville. It seems like I'm raising a much stronger hound than I initially anticipated." To be continued. We'll cover the next story very soon. Stay tuned. If you like the story, let me know in the comments.